In the early years of the 1900s, the United States was facing two problems that were threatening to get a lot worse. The first was a national meat shortage, and the second was an ecological crisis affecting the South. In the interest of combating two problems with one solution, a congressman would introduce a unique bill that had the potential to dramatically impact the country, bringing hippopotamuses to the continent from Africa. Behind this bill were two incredibly fascinating figures. One, an adventurer who went on to inspire the creation of Indiana Jones and the Boy Scouts of America, and the other, a descendant of Dutch settlers in Africa who lived a life of lies, deception, and cons. Both of these men were spies, who at one time were tasked with assassinating each other, only to put their differences aside to try to bring hippos to America. Don't forget to like and subscribe below as we learn something new. By 1910, America was going through some major growing pains. Immigration to the country was rising to heights never before seen. Cities were exploding with growth, and the meat industry simply couldn't keep up. Not to mention that as more cities and towns were forming all over the expanse of the continent, more places were being discovered that just weren't ideal for cattle like in the Midwest, especially the swamps and bayous of the Southwest. It was in this same area that another problem was growing out of control, literally. As I mentioned in my video about invasive species, the water hyacinth is an extremely problematic plant that can completely dominate an ecosystem. Some believe it was brought to Louisiana in 1884 for the World's Fair. To commemorate the event, the plant was allegedly given to attendees as a gift. But despite their vibrant colors, these plants were trouble. They were able to spread rapidly with the ability to suffocate the bodies of water they gained access to. It was a problem then, and it's still a problem today. So what a better solution than to bring in hippos? You could take advantage of the land that couldn't be used for cattle, and they would consume the water hyacinth that were taking over so many bodies of water. A Louisiana congressman named Robert Broussard recognized this, and so he introduced Bill H.R. 23261 to Congress, commonly referred to as the Hippo Bill. Now, there were two key drivers behind this plan. The first was Fritz Duquesne. A descendant of Dutch settlers in Africa, he was often seen as slippery. He moved through life in a cloud of aliases and was an ambitious con man. He fought against the British in the Anglo-Boer War when the conflict broke out from 1899 to 1902. And once he was referred to as the human epitome of sin and deception, going on to form a spy ring during World War II. The other was a man named Frederick Russell Burnham, a man looked up to by many. In fact, the Boy Scouts of America was molded in his image to create boys that were capable and honorable as he was. Not to mention, he also served as the inspiration for the creation of Indiana Jones. He was a freelance adventurer who had gone to Africa in his youth to fight the Dutch and to help the British. These two men ended up on opposing sides during the Anglo-Boer War and ended up being tasked with killing one another. Despite this, after the war had ended, they were willing to put aside their differences to help Congressman Robert Broussard get his bill passed. The bill stated that Congress should allocate $250,000 to go to Africa and get hippos to be used for farming. And this bill had several major supporters, including notably President Theodore Roosevelt, who had just ended his presidency less than 1 year earlier. Around that same time, he had traveled to Africa and managed to kill 8 hippos while he was there. Being familiar with the animals made him an outspoken supporter of the bill. The newspapers excitedly proclaimed the news to the public, that hippo steaks would be on your table before you knew it. The New York Times called the idea practical and timely, and the Washington Post assured the public throughout the process that the US would see shipments of hippos within a few years. But that's not what happened, because the bill would run into some problems. The first was that some believed hippos might be so incredibly large that they wouldn't be able to easily be shipped like so many other animals. Another was that some worried that hippos wouldn't be able to handle the softer marshlands, claiming that it would be more like quicksand to an animal that heavy. Soon, other congressmen who opposed the bill argued that importing unique animals who had a reputation for being trophies from the safari hunts in Africa would lead hunters to sneak onto farms and hunt them for trophies. In the end, the bill didn't pass by 1 vote. The Department of Agriculture would eventually address the meat shortage, not by bringing in different animals, but by working to convert swamplands to cattle-friendly land. As for the water hyacinth, it's still a problem for many states currently. Since the proposal to import hippos, the Army Corps of Engineers have tried various other ways to get rid of it, including incineration, strong acids, and just spraying them with hot water. Despite it once allegedly being given as a gift, it's now illegal to possess. It's still unclear whether or not the hippos would have thrived in the Deep South environments, as some researchers have said that winters might be too cold for them. But even if they did make it through, there's a chance they could have actually have been damaging to the marshes, as well as making the area more dangerous for the inhabitants, given the hippos' incredible lethality, killing an average of around 500 people a year, as the BBC reported in 2016. The best example of how this could have affected the area, however, comes from the late drug lord Pablo Escobar's estate in Colombia. He had acquired several hippos as pets before his death, and after he passed, authorities found it would be too difficult to move the hippos from the estate, opting instead to just leave them there. The initial 4 hippos he had acquired had no natural predators in the area, and by 2007 had grown to 16, then 40 in 2014. And now, there are anywhere from 90 to 120 hippos expanding farther from the compound to search for more food. So there's a chance that, as has happened so many times before, a species meant to combat an invasive species could have itself become an invasive species too. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe below for more like it. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next one.